Some men command life, others take what they're given. This is the rule Napoleon Hill gave the world, the one that shatters mediocrity and turns the ordinary into the unstoppable. But only if you dare to use it. Most people live and die in a prison without bars, not because the world locked them there, but because they accepted the key was never in their hands. Average minds cling to excuses like a life raft. I didn't have the right start, the right break, the right luck. But Napoleon Hill shattered that illusion. He gave a rule so dangerous, so liberating, it could break a man out of mediocrity forever. You become the master of your fate the moment you master your mind. The average man thinks the game is rigged against him. The exceptional man knows the game is played in his head. Hill's principle was simple. Control the dominating thoughts in your mind, and you control the direction of your life. But simplicity is deceptive, because to obey this rule, you must first wage war against the habits, doubts, and beliefs that have ruled you for years. Picture this, two men standing in the same storm. One curses the rain, waiting for the sun to come. The other builds an ark. Same conditions, different results. Why? Because one man's inner weather was prepared for anything. Hill studied hundreds of history's most outstanding achievers: Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Rockefeller, and they all shared the same truth. They refused to let circumstances dictate the limits of their thinking. While others saw scarcity, they saw opportunity. While others saw risk, they saw opportunity in the form of leverage. While others were waiting, they were moving. But here's the part that will make you uncomfortable. This rule demands responsibility. If your results are poor, the fault isn't in your boss, your upbringing, or your enemies. It's in your thinking. And if that's true, then you must change yourself before you can change anything else. The average mind rejects that. It's easier to blame than to build. But those who accept it, those who take the wheel of their mental ship, discover something intoxicating. The world bends toward the man who turns himself first. This is not positive thinking. Hill didn't tell you to hope for better days. He commanded you to discipline your thoughts until they are only occupied with what you desire. Every day, every hour, ask yourself, does this thought move me closer to my goal or further away? If it's the latter, you burn it, ruthlessly. This rule is the death of passivity. You cannot wait and see. You must think and do. You visualize what you want with such clarity it burns into your subconscious, and then you take bold, relentless action until reality has no choice but to match the image in your mind. Most people dabble in this. They set a goal, hold it for a few days, then let the noise of life drown it out. But those who truly live by Hill's rule build a mental fortress, guarding their focus like it's their last breath. And the result? Their mind becomes a weapon, a magnet, a command center where faith and decision create outcomes the world calls impossible. Here's the truth. If you control what dominates your mind, you can't stay average. It's impossible. If you don't control it, you'll never escape average. It's inevitable. The question is, which man will you be? IronWill Cinema is where strength meets strategy, where your mind becomes your most dangerous weapon. This channel is not for the soft. If you're ready for more than motivation, subscribe now, hit the like button, leave how this channel helped in the comments, and never settle for average again. The mind is a factory. It produces exactly what you order from it. Nothing more, nothing less. Most men unknowingly submit orders of fear, doubt, and failure, then act shocked when life delivers them right on schedule. Napoleon Hill's rule doesn't just tell you to think better thoughts. It commands you to rewire the machinery, to fire the lazy foreman of negative thinking, and replace him with a ruthless commander who refuses to build anything that doesn't serve your purpose. Think about it. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. Do you believe he was counting failures? No, he was counting steps toward a result already finished in his mind. The invention existed in his head long before it ever lit a single room. That's the power Hill spoke about, a dominating desire, impressed upon the mind until the world bows to it. But here's where most men collapse. They treat desire like a spark instead of a furnace. They let it flicker and die at the first sign of resistance. They think a setback is a sign to stop, when in reality, It's the universe testing if they're worthy to hold the prize. Hill warned that without a definite central purpose, the mind becomes a drifter's playground. Average men drift. They let trends, opinions, and the day's news set their emotional thermostat. Winners set it themselves, and they put it high. You must become the kind of man who cannot be bought, distracted, or swayed. Your purpose must be so clear that when obstacles come, and they will, you see them as stepping stones, not walls. And let's be honest, this kind of mental control is not comfortable. It means you will cut ties with people who feed your doubts. It means waking up earlier, reading what others ignore, and practicing self-discipline until it becomes your nature. It means being labeled obsessed by those too weak to understand. That's the price. But the reward? You will move from reacting to creating, from surviving to directing, from watching other men build their dreams to watching them study you and wonder how you did it. Hill's rule is not about luck or motivation. It's about the law of cause and effect applied to the mind. What you plant grows, what you neglect withers, what you feed multiplies. So what's dominating your thoughts right now? A problem you can't stop replaying? Or a vision you're building piece by piece? Be honest, because your answer is writing your future in real time. The man who understands this never leaves his mind unattended. He stands guard like a soldier at the gates, rejecting any intruder who weakens his aim. He knows one undisciplined moment can undo months of progress, and he refuses to pay that price. This is the war that breaks the average mind. And the war begins with one question you must answer for yourself. Am I willing to think only in the direction I want my life to go, no matter what I see in front of me? Here's the irony. The average man fights to protect the very thoughts that keep him average. He'll defend his limitations like a prized possession, argue for his failures as if they prove something noble. But the man who breaks free, he abandons the old mental furniture without hesitation. Napoleon Hill made it clear. A single dominating thought can pull you out of obscurity and into influence, wealth, and purpose. But that thought must be backed by something more substantial than hope: absolute belief. Belief so fierce it infects your speech, air, your posture, your decisions, until doubt can't survive in your presence. Think of Henry Ford. When told his idea for the V8 engine was impossible, he didn't lower his aim. He told his engineers, build it anyway. Months passed, failures stacked, but his order never changed. That is the essence of this rule. The mind fixed like steel on the result, unwilling to be seduced by reasonable limits. And you can't fake it. You can't pretend to have belief while secretly making backup plans to fail. Your subconscious knows when you're lying to it. The universe knows too. Average minds operate in bursts. A little faith when it's easy, a little effort when it's exciting. But the man who rises above average lives in a constant state of alignment. Thoughts, words, and actions, all marching toward the same target. Hill's principle is not a someday mindset. It is immediate. You wake up and demand your thoughts report for duty. You train them to see opportunity in every inconvenience, progress in every setback, and lessons in every failure. You refuse to indulge in thoughts of loss unless you're using them to engineer a victory. Understand this: the external world is not your master. The market, the economy, the competition, the critics, they can only influence you to the extent you allow them real estate in your mind. Evict them. Replace them with a vision so clear that even in chaos, you move with precision. Here's where the average mind completely collapses. When results take longer than expected. They confuse delay with defeat, patience with passivity. But the man who lives this rule knows. The gap between the seed and the harvest is where most give up, and where the uncommon man doubles down. This is the pivot point. Either you break your mind to the discipline of your purpose, or the average mind breaks you back into the crowd. So the question remains, will you think as you've always thought, or will you hold a vision so long, so hard, multiply, that reality has no choice but to submit? Every man wants power. Few understand it doesn't begin with money, position, or influence. It begins with possession of your own mind. Napoleon Hill's rule strips away all excuses. It says plainly, you are either the architect of your mind or the tenant in someone else's blueprint. Average men live in mental buildings designed by their parents, teachers, bosses, and the media. They never question the layout. They never knock down a wall. They never imagined they could build their own. The extraordinary man, he bulldozes the old foundation if it doesn't serve him. He dares to design a mental palace that matches the life he wants, not the life he was handed. And here's where Hill's teaching cuts deepest. The moment you take control of your mind, you take full ownership of your results. No more blaming the market. No more if only I had the chance. No more hiding behind bad timing. That's the part that scares most people. Because once you own your mind, you can't avoid the truth. If you're still failing, it's on you. But the man who accepts this responsibility becomes unstoppable. He treats his thoughts like capital, investing them in visions, goals, and solutions that pay dividends. He refuses to squander them on gossip, fear, or petty distractions. Consider Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate who went from penniless immigrant to one of the wealthiest men in history. Hill studied him closely and found no magic formula except this. Carnegie held a clear vision and refused to think in any way that contradicted it. Even in the midst of disaster, he kept his mental image intact, adjusting his strategies, but never his belief. Average minds think life happens to them. Great minds know life responds to them. Every thought is a command, and the world is simply executing orders. But make no mistake, this discipline is a grind. It means noticing every mental slip. It means catching yourself mid-thought and replacing weakness with strength, fear with faith, and delay with action. At first, it's exhausting, but like a muscle, your mind grows stronger with every repetition. And one day, you notice something. The thoughts that used to sabotage you no longer even show up. That's when you've broken the average mind. That's when you've crossed into territory most men will never see. Not because it's hidden, but because the hardest gatekeeper in the world guards it. Your own habits of thought. Hill's rule is the key, but keys are useless if they never come into contact with the lock. So the final decision is yours. Will you guard your mind like the fortune it is, or will you rent it out to the noise of the world? The average mind is reactive. It waits for conditions to improve before it dares to think bigger. The mastermind is proactive. It thinks bigger until conditions improve. Napoleon Hill taught that thoughts are causes, conditions are effects. If you reverse that order, you become a puppet, dancing to the strings of your environment. But when you hold the thought steady, reality eventually bends to it. Look at Walt Disney, bankrupt, laughed out of meetings, told his ideas were too childish to succeed. Yet in his mind, Disneyland already existed, a place where families could escape into wonder. He held that image so vividly that he began acting as if it were inevitable. Investors eventually caught up to what his mind already knew. That's Hill's rule in action. Reality delayed, but never denied. The average man waits for proof before he believes. The man who breaks the average mind believes until he creates the proof. It's a reversal of the world's logic, and it's why the world calls it unrealistic until it's done. But here's the hard truth. Belief without discipline is daydreaming. You can't just feel like a winner. You have to think like one, plan like one, and work like one. Hill's rule demands a marriage between vision and action. Your mind is the general, but your hands must be the soldiers. Average minds quit when effort doesn't immediately match reward. Masterminds understand the law of accumulation. Each thought, each action, each disciplined day adds weight to the scale, until one day, it tips the balance. The world calls it overnight success. You call it Tuesday. And understand this. The rule is neutral. It doesn't care if your dominating thought is wealth or poverty, success or failure. It will multiply whatever you plant. That's why mediocrity spreads like weeds. No one had to water it. They simply let it grow unattended. You must be relentless in uprooting what doesn't serve you. Guard your speech, because every word reinforces a thought. Guard your associations, because every conversation is a seed. Guard your focus, because every distraction is a thief. This principle was revolutionary. Today, it's even more dangerous, because the modern world floods your mind with more input in a day than a man in 1930 saw in a year. The average mind drowns in that flood. The mastermind builds a dam and lets in only what strengthens it. The choice is brutal in its simplicity. Feed the mind or forfeit the life. Hill's rule is not for the faint of heart, but for the man who embraces it. The rewards are beyond money or titles. It is the unshakable knowledge that no matter the storm, you are at the helm. Napoleon Hill knew the most dangerous place for a man wasn't a battlefield or a boardroom. It was the silent space between his ears. Because whatever wins there, wins everywhere. The average man lets that space become a dumping ground. He collects opinions like junk mail. He repeats the language of defeat without even realizing it. Every "I can't, and that's not for people like me" becomes steel in the bars of his mental prison. But the man who follows Hill's rule, he treats his mind like a sacred temple. He chooses every thought like a craftsman chooses the finest materials. He knows each one will become part of the structure he lives in tomorrow. And make no mistake, the cost of protecting your mind is high. You will have to silence voices you once trusted. You will have to walk away from circles that no longer challenge you to grow. You will have to stand alone, sometimes for a long time, before the world catches up to the reality you're building. Most can't pay that price. They trade their mental sovereignty for comfort, company, and the cheap thrill of approval, and then they wonder why they never rise above average. Hill's rule is merciless in its clarity. You will get precisely what you demand from life. Nothing more, nothing less. Demand small, you get small. Demand average, you get average. Demand greatness and back it with thought, faith, and unrelenting action, and you get greatness. It is the discipline of a man who keeps his vision pure while the world around him crumbles. It is the faith of a builder who sees the finished cathedral while everyone else only sees a pile of stones. Think of it this way. Every day you are broadcasting a signal from your mind. The world responds in kind. Broadcast fear, you'll attract predators. Broadcast confidence, you'll attract allies. Broadcast purpose, and the resources to fulfill it will start moving toward you in ways you can't explain, but you will come to expect. The average mind believes in coincidence. The mastermind believes in cause and effect. And here is the final test. When success begins to arrive, you cannot relax the rule. Because the moment you stop controlling your thoughts, the old ones will creep back in, and the average mind will wait patiently to reclaim you. Guard the gates, always. The world is full of men who rose high and fell harder because they thought they could run on yesterday's discipline. Don't be one of them. Live this rule until it's as natural as breathing, because the day you no longer have to remember to control your mind is the day you've truly broken the average one. There is a moment, a line you cross, when Hill's rule stops feeling like discipline and starts feeling like identity. It's no longer something you do. It's who you are. The average man wakes up and hopes for a good day. The mastermind wakes up and builds one. He understands that events may be unpredictable, but his response is always the same. He has predetermined his attitude, focus, and aim. This is the point where the world starts to label you differently. Some will call you lucky. Others will call you arrogant. But those with eyes to see will recognize it for what it is: self-mastery. Hill knew this mastery came from one thing: a definiteness of purpose held in the mind with unwavering faith. Not casual interest, not mild curiosity, but a fire so constant that no wind can snuff it out. And here's the secret. Once your mind is locked on that purpose, it begins to pull the right people, ideas, and opportunities toward you like a magnet. Your job is simply to act on them without hesitation. The average mind hesitates, it second guesses, it waits for a sign. The mastermind moves. Understand, hesitation is the silent killer of dreams. Every moment you spend debating whether you can or should is a moment the opportunity moves towards someone else. Hill's students knew that when the vision is clear and the desire is burning, action must be immediate. Think of the great builders, the inventors, the leaders of history. They were not men of flawless conditions. They were men of flawless commitment. They treated setbacks as instructions, not interruptions. They measured their progress in forward steps, however small, every single day. That is the real break from the average mind. It's not about intelligence, talent, or privilege. It's about the refusal to let a single thought take root unless it serves the life you have decided to build. When this becomes your habit, life changes in ways that look miraculous to others. You'll be in the right room at the right time. You'll meet the person who lives next door. you'll stumble into the exact resource you needed. But deep down, you'll know, none of it was an accident. It was the echo of your dominating thought, bouncing back to you from the world. Hill's rule is not for the many. It is for the few willing to govern themselves before they try to govern anything else. And when you do, the label average will never belong to you again. This is where the journey comes full circle. Napoleon Hill's rule, the one that tears apart the average mind, is not a trick, a hack, or a quick fix. It is a lifelong covenant with yourself. My mind is mine, and I will rule it absolutely. The average man never signs that covenant. He drifts, allowing the tides of opinion, circumstance, and comfort to decide his direction. He lives in reaction, never creation. And at the end, he wonders why he never held the life he dreamed of. But the man who commits, truly commits, begins to experience a shift so profound, it rewrites the definition of impossible to I'm possible. He no longer fears the unknown, because he knows his mind can shape it. He no longer waits for opportunity, because his thoughts create it. He no longer begs for approval, because his faith in his vision outweighs the need for permission. Hill understood that the mind is the original engine of all wealth, power, and achievement. Before the skyscraper, there was a thought. Before the empire, there was a vision. Before every great victory, there was a man who refused to think in any way but forward. The rule is harsh. It gives you no one else to blame. But it's also liberating, because if you alone are responsible, then you alone are in control. And here is the ultimate reward for living this way. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You no longer scramble for scraps at the table of life, because you have built the table. The woman or man who has mastered their mind is untouchable by gossip, immune to envy, and unaffected by defeat. They understand that external events are temporary, but the trained mind is eternal. So remember, the average mind will always try to pull you back. It will whisper the language of doubt. It will tempt you with comfort over conquest. Your job is to recognize that voice and answer with the clarity of your purpose. When your thoughts are aligned with your goals, when your faith is unshakable, when your actions are relentless, the world cannot stop you. The rule is simple, the application is hard, but the result, freedom. The man who knows his mind doesn't chase, he commands. Your mind is the only empire you will ever truly own. Build it, guard it, and expand it, and the world will bend to the man who broke the average one.
The ground shakes under your
IronWill
feet.
Cinema,
Built
built by fire, forged by focus.
Battle drum